Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Fantasy Football Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. Our first show returning since the international break, so we're very, very happy to be back at it for a big push towards the end of the Bundesliga season. Joined this morning, as always, by Rune. How are you doing this very wet morning in Sheffield?
Yeah, it's a very weird morning in Copenhagen as well. But other than that, I'm doing well and excited to be back, giving tips and looking forward to the weekend and especially to the game between Dortmund and Stuttgart. I think that will be an exciting one in the top four battle.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, some big games scattered all over the place. So yeah, kick back and enjoy with us. Of course, if you've got any questions, please do shout up. Thumbs up, always welcome on these videos, which help the videos to perform. As I mentioned, yeah, give us a shout if you've got any questions and subscribe to the channel. Of course, make sure you go and check out Bulinews, whether it's over via X or Twitter, as you can see down below, or just going to bulinews.com on your internet and web browsers to check out all their brilliant articles. So yeah, we'll get started with our defenders. So I'll just get those Runer's top three picks. So budget, mid price, and premium as per usual. Good morning to everyone who's tuning in as well. So Jay tuning in. Timothy, morning as well. So yeah, without further delay, Rune, I'll hand over to yourself so you can run us through those top three picks.
Yeah, and my budget pick this week is Max Greve from FC Köln. It's not often that I mention an FC Köln player on the show, but nevertheless, I think Finn Greve has been one of the bright spots in in Köln's very difficult campaign, and he's broken into the first team and nailed down a starting spot at the left back position. And he should be back in the starting lineup this time around. And yeah, just 1.7 million. I think he's a player you can't really go wrong with, and probably the best budget pick in defense at the moment. He scored a great free kick early in the season against Hoffenheim, so he's shown that he's capable of doing something special if needed. And of course, Köln have a very exciting, important 6-pointer at home against Bochum, and that's a game they will surely look to win if they are to keep any chances of staying up alive. Mid-price pick is Philipp Vene from Mainz, another differential. He's been pretty nailed on as a wingback under Bo Henriksen, and he's been Mainz' second best performing fantasy player this season. Doesn't say a lot, but nevertheless, he's playing in a pretty attacking role, and he's quite involved in their attacking game as well. And yeah, I know Mainz conceded 8 goals against Bayern, but they've actually managed to keep 2 clean sheets in a row since then. One against Leipzig last week as well. And of course, they have a home game against Darmstadt coming up. So that's pretty much like with FC Köln. That's a game that Mainz will surely target to win. And they're also quite big favorites against Darmstadt at home, I think. So maybe a game to target if you want some differentials. And finally, my premium pick is Nielsen Kunku, who I actually brought in last week, and I was a bit disappointed with his 6 points. But yeah, what happened was that he picked up a yellow card in the first half, and yeah, actually came pretty close to receiving a second one. So Top Müller, Eintracht's coach, decided to take him off at halftime to avoid risking a red card in the second half. So that's a shame, but nevertheless, I think he should start tonight. We can see if he starts against the Werder at home, and if he does, I think he's a very exciting option this week. He's shown a lot of, yeah, he's shown what he's capable of offensively. I think this season been scoring a lot of goals actually, given the fact that he's a defender, and it's a game I'm backing Eintracht to win. So a very good matchup for Eintracht there, and a good differential in defense.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much for those, Rune. A couple of comments coming in, so we'll pick those up, especially ones that are focused around defenders. So morning, Gavin, as well. Thanks for tuning in. Glad that you're able to catch us live. First defender question It's from Jay. Are you expecting Frimpong to be rested? If so, who makes for some great replacements? Obviously mentioned Nkunku as your premium pick. Anyone else that we can have floating around? I suppose the usual suspects are all out there. Should some resting and rotation happen this weekend?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Frimpong gets a rest and Taylor plays, as we've seen a few times this season. Actually, with the position Leverkusen are in, they probably need Frimpong more for the West Ham game than the one at the weekend, because that they seem so certain to win the title now, all things considered. So could be the case that Taylor gets a chance instead of Frimpong. Question is whether to sell him or not, because if you go with the 3-4-3, for example, it wouldn't be a complete disaster if he's benched, and then you'd still be able to get all his points if he starts. But if you want to, sell him, then I think at least Nkunku, as I mentioned, is a good option. You probably already have David Raum, who's in the same price category. So I think it's difficult to find someone actually that would be a great direct replacement. It could be Guerrero maybe if you want to go with him, but he's been pretty disappointing fantasy wise, at least this season. He's probably going to start ahead of Davies. Davies didn't look good at all against Dortmund, and Guerrero is back now, so looks like he will get the nod at left back. So he's a pretty good alternative in the same price category, but yeah, as I said, there's also the option of just keeping Frimpong and wait and see if he starts or not, and if not, you have 4 other pretty good defenders.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question there. One from Gavin. Why go with Mwene over Sepp van den Berg, who's obviously had a good little run actually in form. He's obviously made a really good clearance off the line the other day. And has impressed in spells, but I'm presuming we're going with the former because of his ability to get forward in this new mind system, Rune, and given a bit more freedom.
Yeah, I think he's more likely to do well. What we've seen from Van den Berg is he's good at getting points from winning duels, and yeah, he's taken 6 points if I remember correctly from each of the last 2 games, just from one duel, which is great. But I think Mwene is more involved offensively. Van den Berg has also scored a few goals, but it's mostly been goals of set pieces, which is pretty difficult to predict whether he can keep doing that. Sometimes there's a lot of chance involved. It can be quite random if he just pops up in the right place in the box or not. Whereas I feel Mwene is playing in an attacking role on the left and will be involved offensively for Mainz in a game that they will likely dominate in terms of possession. So that's why I chose him. But Van den Berg has been in great form and is a good alternative if you want someone else from the Mainz backline.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite a few questions coming in, so we'll fly through these. Good morning, Sophia. Thanks for your question. Is it worth getting a Bayern defender this week? Obviously, away to Heidenheim poses up quite an interesting one. We were saying last night that we think there will be goals in this one, Rune. So possibly points to be had for Bayern defenders, but maybe just about getting the right one.
Yeah, I think the only one worth considering is Guerrero. Because Kimmich is playing the right back position, and then you have De Ligt and Dyer, who I wouldn't get, given that they're playing a centre back. So the only option I would consider is Guerrero. And as I said, we all know he's capable of doing extremely well fantasy wise, especially if Bayern have a good game. But then on the other hand, they've been pretty inconsistent this season, and Guerrero hasn't. I almost can't remember a game where he's scored double digits this season. It's not been that impressive from him fantasy-wise. So the question is whether you want to take that risk again with him. I've brought him in a few times, and he's disappointed me every time. So I don't know if I want to keep doing that, but of course he has potential.
Yeah, good stuff. FPL Trini has said, I've got Raum Henriks, Frimpong, Grimaldo, and Davis. Should I get rid of Davis for Guerrero? Sounds like a very logical switch based on what we just said, Rune.
Yeah, I expect Guerrero to start, and that's what I've seen from all sources, that he's expected to play over Davies. So yeah, I would do that if we were to sell him for another Bayern defender at least.
Yeah, very good. One from Jeff as well. Good morning, Jeff. Is Bernardo worth considering as a budget pick this week? Obviously, being at home or taking on Köln at home for Bochum. Interesting one, the fullback. Rune, what do you think is a bit of a differential?
Yeah, I think it's a game that's pretty difficult to predict. I think in Bochum's favor, Köln have struggled to score goals, so there might be a chance of getting a clean sheet. On the other hand, I think Köln have looked at like a bit of an improved side lately, so it's a really close one. I think in terms of attacking potential, I would consider Greve from Köln actually, who's a bit cheaper if I were to pick a differential at the back in this game. I think he's a better player going forward. He's got a few more things in his locker and good at swinging in crosses. And as I said, he also can take free kicks if necessary. We'll probably choose Greve from this game if I were to get a differential at the back.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Obviously, Bochum are travelling to Köln. Bochum at FSA this weekend. Great. Loads of excellent questions there. Thank you for everyone to getting the show off to a really good start. There's been some questions asked prior to the show as well, so I want to make sure that we don't miss those, but I don't think they're in relation to defenders from what I can tell. So we'll move on. We'll go on to our midfielders, which I'll now get up on the screen for you. We'll let Rune run through these and then we'll go through questions again. So over to you again, Rune.
Yeah, so a few Mainz picks here, and midfield budget pick is Brian Gruder, who's a player with a lot of potential, a very highly rated player in Germany. Still could maybe be a bit more consistent, but he's so young, and he's shown in some games at least that he has X factor and that he can change games on his own and provide some real piece of magic sometimes. And as I said, it's a great game for Mainz at home against Darmstadt. A game they're expected to win, and Gruder is expected to come into the starting lineup there. So a player with a pretty high ceiling, but I mean, he could also just get like 2 or 3 or 4 points and disappoint. So if you want to go with someone maybe a bit more safe in terms of floor, you would go with Pavlovic from Bayern in the same price category. I don't think he has the same ceiling as Gruder, but obviously a Bayern player available for a fee in that region is very intriguing as well. So two good options there that are really cheap. My mid-price pick is Nadim Amiri, who I've mentioned before, and a player I've been really impressed with since he joined Mainz from Leverkusen. He was really disappointing last time I brought him in for the Bochum game on match day 26. He only got 3 points from that game. But still, I think he deserves a shout this week because he's just so involved in Mainz game, and it's a game that they're likely to dominate, and he'll be in set pieces. So yeah, you always look for players that are really involved when you're looking to find good fantasy options, and that's certainly something you can say about Amiri, and I think he could be in for a really good game there. And finally, my premium pick is Danny Olmo, just because I think he's been so consistently good lately. As we can see, he got 12 points last time, and he has 3 double-digit hauls in his last 4 games. And I know Freiburg just got a great result last week against Gladbach. But still, it's Leipzig are tipped as favorites for the game, and Olmo just usually does well. His floor has been quite impressive actually since he returned from injury. So I think it makes sense if you already have him to keep him alongside Simons, and if you're looking for a player in that price category, especially with Stuttgart and Dortmund facing each other, I think he's a very good shout.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you very much, Rune. That's grand. So I'll just quickly cover the questions asked in the chat, and there's some other ones that we need to get to. Let's come to Gavin's one that he asked a little bit earlier on. I just want to make sure that we don't miss this. So Gavin was asking, is Brandt worth punt? Even if I go for him, I still have 26 mil left to spend. So I'm looking for pricey players that maybe others cannot afford to get. Brandt obviously going to be involved in the top spiel this weekend. A huge game. One of those players, Rune, that can often, he can perform in most fixtures. Obviously, the term they use sometimes uses fixture proof. Not sure if he's necessarily fixture proof this time around, but still has a chance to haul in some points.
Yeah, definitely. I think he was quite disappointing for a while after he returned from his long spell on the sidelines. He was very, very ill. Apparently, he's been talking about that in interviews a few times. So it's taken some time for him to get back to full fitness. But I think judging from the last few weeks, looks like he's back at his best, or at least close to that. So yes, he's the player that I've looked at as well. The only worry I have with him is that that Dortmund have an important Champions League game as well, and I think Brandt's minute has been managed since he returned from that spell on the sidelines. He's been taking off quite early on a few occasions, and Dortmund have some good players on the bench who can come in and replace him if needed. So wouldn't surprise me if he gets subbed off after like 60, 65 minutes. But I mean, that's enough time, of course, for him to make an impact on the game. And he is the kind of player that is kind of fixture proof and can do well against any opponent. So actually, given his low ownership at the moment, he is actually a differential, despite being so expensive and being so highly regarded. So could be a good option, but I think he's unlikely to play the full game.
Yeah, I get that impression as well with rotation this weekend. Jay is asked as well, would you keep Stoiger in what many people are expecting to be a low-scoring match? So we'll deal with that part of the question first. What about Stoiger? Obviously, a lot of people have him in their team, again, pretty much regardless, because he runs the game so well for Bochum. I thought he was really good for 45 50 minutes or so on Sunday. So would you be keeping Stoiger this weekend, Rune?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, it's a pretty close matchup, but it's also a pretty good one for Bochum, and then they have a good one next week as well. I think it's Heidenheim at home. So I think it would be a bit weird timing to sell Stoiger now, especially given his consistency this season. He's usually very involved for Bochum, just like Amiri is for Mainz. He's the player that is like the focal point in midfield, and he's dictating the play and taking all set pieces, including penalties as well. So not worrying too much, even though it could be a low-scoring affair. And regarding Führig, I think he's been quite disappointing fantasy-wise since the turn of the year, actually. I actually sold him before the game that he scored that amazing goal out of nowhere. Can't remember exactly which game that was, but I think it was Union at home or something like that. But before he scored that goal, he was on like 2 points, and then that obviously changed his points tally for the better. But I think he's had quite a few games actually where he's been picking up just like 3, 4, 5 points this season. So I would look at other options, especially given the fact that Stuttgart have a difficult away match in Dortmund.
Yeah. I think Führig's overall form and performances in matches have been pretty okay. I think they have dropped off a little bit from the Hinrunde. His assists and goals contributions have maybe dipped ever so slightly, but You can see in his confidence levels, it's still very, very high. And taking a man on and that relationship that he has down the left hand side with Mittelstadt is excellent still. So hopefully will cause all sorts of problems with Dortmund this weekend, and we'll see them hauling a load of points. But yeah, I agree from a fantasy perspective, he's definitely dipped a little bit. Hopefully, Jay, we've covered that bit about whether it's worth covering. Pulling in a Mainz midfielder, obviously being 2 of Rune's 3 picks. So let me just quickly cover. Questions asked prior to the show. One from SBK11 was, assuming you keep Wirtz and Musiala, what's the best way to differentiate in midfield? So is it potentially worth selling another premium pick, Rune, to make room for someone else? Obviously, we've already kind of mentioned that Brandt is in effect almost a differential as well. So a high costing one, mind. So any other thoughts and theories for SBK11?
Yeah, I think the template midfield at the moment is probably Wirtz, Musiala, Simon, Stöger, and Olmo, maybe. At least the first 4 of them. And yeah, sure, you could. I think Wirtz, Musiala, and Simons, you're not going to sell them, but the other 2 positions are maybe up for grabs if you want to go with differential. For example, you could take out Stöger and go with Amiri instead. It's a pretty similar player with a better matchup at home, Amiri. Yeah, that could be a way to differentiate yourself. Although Stöger, of course, is great. And regarding Olmo, yeah, you could maybe go with someone like Brandt instead if you want to do something different. I think those 2 players would be the players I'd suggest if you want someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. One in from FBL Will as well, who couldn't make the show whilst it's live. I wanted to see if you would target any Augsburg, Frankfurt, and Bochum players this match day, given their favourable fixtures. Obviously, we've kind of covered a couple of Frankfurt players and Bochum. Is there anyone in particular from Augsburg, Rune, that we might see? Is Demirovic due a return at all? And maybe a couple of Mbabu perhaps as well. He had a good game and has been playing pretty well recently as well.
I'm actually not sure if I agree with the assessment that it's a favorable fixture for Augsburg away in Hoffenheim. I know they're in great form, but they have quite a few problems with injuries at the back. Looks like Mbabu will miss the game, actually. Same with Iago. So Udokai will probably be moved to left back, and then Pedersen will come in at right back, and Bauer playing in central defense. Gauleo is a doubt as well, actually, in central defense. Wow. So they have some problems at the back. So I'm not really sure about that game, actually. I wouldn't be that surprised if Hoffenheim will put an end to Augsburg's great streak. I know Hoffenheim that have not been in great form lately, but they've had some pretty tough fixtures. And so, yeah, to sum up, I wouldn't go with any Augsburg assets. And Bochum, I think the only real option I'd consider is Stöger at the moment. And then what was last team? Frankfurt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Nkunku, of course, is a great shout at the back. Maybe Chaibi if you want a true differential in midfield. He's looked good. He's been inconsistent, but he's had some really, really good games for Frankfurt, especially in Europe. And as I said, it's a game I really back Frankfurt to win. And then finally, Mamouche, who I'm going to talk a bit about later. Also think he's a pretty good shout.
Yeah, excellent stuff. And speaking of strikers, let's crack on. If it works for me, need to. Oh, there we go. Too many clicks. Over to you, Rune, then, to run us through the budget, mid-price, and premium strikers this week.
Yeah, I think Burkhardt is my budget pick, and yeah, for once, I've actually got a player to suggest in the budget category up front. I think Burkhardt has. He's looking like the player that he's starting to look like the player he was before his long-term injury. He was really highly regarded and looked very good for Mainz before suffering that injury, and he's starting to show again what he's capable of. It also looks like he's on penalties for Mainz now, which is obviously a big plus. And yeah, he had a very good game against Bochum a few weeks ago, where he scored a brace and also got 8 points last week in a 0-0 draw with Leipzig. That's pretty solid as well. So yeah, a really good differential if you want someone cheap up front this week. And my mid-price pick is Maximilian Bayer. As I just said before, Augsburg have a lot of injury problems at the back. So I think but it could be one of those games where Bayer really holds. We've seen that from him a few times this season. He's got a few braces, like the one he scored in Dortmund, for example, and he's on 5 goals in his last 5 games. So could be worth a shout there up front against an injury hit Augsburg side. And then finally, Omar Mamouche, who has been in great form for Eintracht at home. I just looked at the home games, and he scored at least 9 points in the last 6 games on home soil. And he's been involved in 16 goals and 22 Bundesliga appearances this season, which is really impressive, obviously. And I think Werder's defense usually very leaky, so I would be very surprised if Frankfurt don't score tonight. And Mamouche is usually involved when they score. As an alternative, I just wanted to mention Serge Gnabry, actually from Bayern, because Sané and Coman have struggled this week and has been training on their own and running training after picking up knocks. I wouldn't be surprised if Gnabry starts. I'm pretty sure he will, actually, because Tuchel is unlikely to risk any of his star players ahead of the Arsenal game. So will be a chance for Gnabry to prove himself. He has a lot to play for. He's been out injured for a while, and there's been some suggestions in the German media that Bayern could look to sell him this summer. So he's got a lot to prove, and obviously it's a quite good game for Bayern against Heidenheim, and one where he could really shine.
Yeah, I very much agree with potential to shine in that match. Okay, brilliant stuff. So we'll just finish up with any more questions that have come in to the chat. So we'll try and fly through these, just conscious of time a little bit. Gavin has kicked us off with got Kane, Guirassy, Openda up front. Would you drop any of these for a more different punt and maybe play a 4-4-2 to moderate risk this week, Rune? So formation-wise, would you change things up?
Yeah, I think that's a good option, especially because of Stuttgart's difficult away match. I mean, Guirassy has shown that he can score against any opponent, but still, it's a difficult game away against the Dortmund side, who just beat Bayern 2-0 in a very convincing fashion. So yeah, I think that makes sense to maybe consider someone else, or to go with the 4-4-2 for a bit more flexibility.
Yeah, I think that kind of half covers what FPL Gunnosaurus has asked about. Keep or selling Guirassy this week. Although it's a tough call because, like you say, Rune, he can score against anyone. Guirassy, clinical finisher, working so well in tandem with Undav and the attacking sets that Stuttgart played all season, really. So I don't think you'd be selling yourself short if you keep him. But it's also a game that, by all means, Stuttgart might struggle because it's probably a long time since they've at least gone to Signal Iduna Park and won. Obviously, the last 3 fixtures against Dortmund, they've been unbeaten. Obviously, a cup win, home win, and then that crazy 3-3 draw towards the end of last season. Recently, last 3 matches, it's been okay for Stuttgart, but I think this will be a particularly tough one. Anything else to add on Guirassy, Rune?
No, it's a really tough call, as you say, Jay. Depends on, I think keeping Guirassy will maybe be the safe option in a way, given his high ownership, but could also be a week where you could really differentiate yourself if you get someone like a differential option in, like Bayer or Burkhardt or whatever, and he really holds. So tough one. I'm not really sure what to do yet, actually, to be honest.
And speaking of tough ones, same question from Jeff in regards to Openda. I mean, on paper, Freiburg's a tricky one, isn't it? But I think Leipzig's record against Freiburg is really quite strong. And so, I mean, my heart wants obviously a good result for Freiburg for obvious reasons, but could quite easily see Leipzig going quite strong still.
Yeah, I mean, they look great against Gladbach, but then at the same time, Gladbach are really poor at the moment. So it was probably a combination of both things, Gladbach being really poor and Freiburg having a good game. I think if you look at their back line, they have Lienhardt and Ginter out with injuries. So it'll probably be Kübler, Keitel, and Gulde playing at the back. So two players actually playing out of position there, coming up against the likes of Olmo, Simons, Openda. I'm expecting a Leipzig win. Leipzig were really unlucky not to score last week against Mainz. I think if you played that game 10 more times, they'd probably win the 9 of them, something like that. They really dominated that game. So not too worried about Openda, to be honest.
Good stuff. Then just a couple of quick last comments, which we'll just fly through if we possibly can. FPL Trini, who are the best 2 goalkeepers to have currently? Obviously, because Jan Niklas was replaced by Jonas Omlin for Gladbach. I know that's one player that I've been relying on quite a lot in terms of picking up quite reliable points, just because he faces so many shots. Who would you maybe now take out? Just chooses those best 2 picks, Rune.
That's actually a difficult one. Baumann has been really good this season for Hoffenheim. Of course, he's also quite expensive. So it's a good shout. I think Riemann has been disappointing, but it is a game I could expect him. I would expect him to do well against Köln, because, I mean, Köln have lacked some ruthlessness in front of goal. So we could get to make a lot of saves, and could be a low scoring affair, as one of you guys wrote in a comment earlier. Then I think actually that Omlin could have a good game as well. Didn't look good last week. Made a few mistakes in the loss to Freiburg. But I would imagine that Wolfsburg will dominate that game against Gladbach, and probably also win it. But the question is, how many saves will Omlin make, and I think he could get a lot of points from saved shots. So also a good option, and not that expensive actually.
Good stuff. Gavin, excuse me. Gavin, just with a comment in regards to, do you think the game should go back to just 3 free transfers a week rather than 5? Find it our teams end up all being too similar and impossible in the Rückrunde to rise significantly in rank. Interesting thoughts there, Gavin. It certainly makes people obviously think a lot about putting in those differentials towards the end of the season, but then there's obviously the risk versus reward element of it. So, Rune, are you got any great preference between 3 and 5?
Yeah, I like the 3 transfers more myself. You had to be way more strategic and look ahead. Now you can change almost half your starting lineup every week. But yeah, that's just my preference. But I think what they've been trying to do is to make the game more accessible for new players and for casual players. So they're probably unlikely to change it. And I also think that was why they made the change regarding substitutes during match days. But yeah, sure, I like the old rules way more.
Absolutely. Just finally, FPL Trini asking about Victor Boniface, who obviously made a return to action during the Pokal fixture for Leverkusen. Is he an option again? Rune, I presume Xabi and co just going to be careful with with Boniface in terms of phasing him back in. I don't know if you've heard differently, but I'd be shocked if they threw him into the deep end straight away in what is obviously still a really important match, because they're still working their way towards the title and they don't want any slip ups and they don't want any injuries therefore afterwards as well.
Yeah, as you say, Rory, I agree with that assessment. He is an option again, but will probably need some time. But sure, Schick's minutes will be managed more now that he's available, and I want him to get some minutes to get fully back in form and in full shape. So probably wouldn't get Schick. I think now would be a weird time to get him with Boniface offering competition and getting stronger and stronger again.
Yeah, completely agree. Perfect. So yeah, awesome show today, this morning. Thank you very much for everyone's contributions. Obviously what makes these shows so great and interactive. So loads of questions and comments all the way through, which has been awesome. So just to round up and finish, make sure you leave a thumbs up on the show. That'd be awesome. Obviously, if you're not watching this live, do comment any questions and thoughts, and myself and Rune will try and monitor that through the day until the Friday evening kickoff. Of course, if you could subscribe to the channel, even better. That would be awesome. So all there is to say again is thank you to everyone. Thank you to Rune for all your expert opinions, and yeah, we'll catch you on Monday for the review show. Thanks all.
Bye.